Hello and welcome to another video. Now in this video we're going to be taking a look at the recent Duelling Excel between Mike Girvan and Bill Jelen, and they were posed a problem whereby the user had been given a project and they were given it on a certain date and time, and it had been given with a due date and time. Now what they needed to do was work out how much available working time they had to complete this project, bearing in mind a certain shift pattern. Now the shift pattern is the awkward bit about this, and it runs from 1900 till 4 a.m. the following day. Now that might sound silly, but actually it's on a weekday, so a weekday still includes Saturday up till 4 a.m. as working time. Now both of them came up with a brilliant solution for this, and the solution, which had I not seen it, it would have probably stumped me for quite a while, is simply to subtract 4 hours from each of these. Because as long as I subtract the 4 hours from the starting and the finishing time, it doesn't affect the duration at all. Now neither of those two guys produced a VBA solution, so that's what I've done. Now in here, if I just select them and unhide, you'll see that I've got my adjusted times here, and these adjusted times are what I use to calculate the total number of minutes, which is my elapsed time or calendar or clock time for my project. I then use VBA to work out whether each of those minutes was a working minute or a non-working minute, and that's based upon what is the day of the week of the adjusted times, not the actual times, and do they fall within the working pattern of those times. I then simply take my working minutes, divide by 60 to give me a total number of hours, and I use integer to get just the whole numbers, and then I use mod to get my minutes, which is the remainder. I then concatenate them together to give this weird number format for the number of hours and minutes. Now let's have a look at the code itself to see what it does. So if I go to sheet 2, what I have is I have my total number of working minutes running down here, and it goes minute by minute, and then I have my value for whether it's a working minute or not. Now if I scroll down to where it becomes midnight, so where it switches over to being midnight, we'll see my 1 changes into a 0, because midnight, remember, with my adjusted time, with my actual end of shift being 4 a.m, because I've taken off the 4 hours, it's midnight on that day. Okay, so let's just clear this. And the code does do that, but I want to step you through my code just so you can actually see what it does. So I'm going to just shrink this down so we can see what it does on the side here. So I'm going to go through the code, and the first thing is I'm turning off the screen updating, so when it actually runs the code you don't see it doing anything, and that also makes it a lot faster. I'm now picking up some values from my worksheet, so I'm picking up the total number of minutes, which is what I've got in cell C8. I'm picking up my start time from A5, now that's the adjusted start time, and my end time, which is my adjusted due date. Now these I'm going to use. Now next thing I do is I then select sheet 2, which is this one here, and I clear everything on there, which will be what was there from when I previously ran the code. So let's just step through that. So I go down here, my total number of minutes is now 1623, which it's picked up from 1623, and my start time and end time, it's also picked up from the workbook. Now I go to this sheet, select it, clear all the cells, and make sure that my selected cell or my active cell is A1. Now in that cell, what I'm going to do is put the variable start time. So that fills in the variable start time. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a loop. Now I'm just going to go through some of these. Now I've set my loop to go up to the total number of minutes. So you remember I've got the total number at 1623. I want to do that -1 because that runs up to my due date, and I'm assuming that the date and time that it is due, it's due at the start of that minute, not the end of that minute, so I don't want that minute included. So I'm running from 0 to total minutes -1. What I then do is I look at my active cell effectively with no offset for this instance of the loop, because my starting x is 0, so there's no offset. What I'm doing is I'm saying make the value in there, which is my date time, equal my start time plus x, which is 0, over 1440. Now that basically means let it equal the same for this instance, but the next time it runs through it'll add on a minute each time as it runs down until I've done the total number of elapsed minutes in my project. Now what I then do is I have a look at that date and I say, what day of the week is it? Now here what I've done is I've used the weekday function in VBA and I've said VB Saturday, in other words Saturday is day number 1, Sunday day number 2, Monday day number 3, and I've then looked at it and said if it's bigger than 2, in other words if it's not Saturday or Sunday, then what do? Well, I take the time from that cell and I subtract it from the integer of that date time in that cell, and that basically leaves me just the time. And then I look at that time and I say, is it between 900 and 1440, including the 900 but not the 1440. So what that does, it says 900 minutes into a day is 1500. Now 1500, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, is my start of work time, which is my 7 p.m. minus the 4 hours. Now what I then have is I have my 1440, which is my end of working time, which is 4 a.m. the following day minus 4 hours, which is midnight. There are 1440 minutes in a day, 60 times 24. Okay, so what I'm saying is if it's within my working hours, then I want the cell to the right, that cell there, to be 1. Otherwise I want it to be 0. So it's a working time or a non-working time. So let's cycle through that. So is it within that bracket? Well, this one actually is within that bracket, so it goes down to this one and it says make it equal 1. End the if, and now I come back to loop round again. So now it's going to put that value down there plus 1 minute and run through the same process. So it's going to say, is that a working day? Yes, it is. So then it looks at the time. Now if it's not a working day, it skips over it completely and ignores it. That basically then makes it a 0. So is it within that bracket? Yes, it is. So make it a 1 and so on. And if I press F5, it just cycles through the rest of that. Okay, so let me just scroll down to the bottom of this code. What we do at the end is we simply say, so once it's run through as many instances as it needs to for the total number of elapsed minutes, it says, well, simply add up everything in column B, because if it's a working minute, it's a 1. If it's not, it's a 0. So if I just simply add everything together, sum the column, and that gives me my total number of working minutes. And I then write that value into C11 on my sheet. So C11 is there, which is my working minutes. And I've then just got a simple formula here, which is looking at get the integer, get the mod, to get the number of hours and minutes, and concatenate them together there. Okay, so that's how that works. Let's just give it another test. So I'm going to just hide those again just to make it slightly cleaner. What we're going to do is we're going to change this number here so it's the 27th. Now if we look at this, at the 26th is a Friday. If I make it the 27th, it's a Saturday, and my total number of minutes is basically 1440 minutes more, so it's a full day's worth of minutes more. But we must bear in mind this is my elapsed time, not my working time. Now my working time won't include any time on Saturday other than the first 4 hours, which my adjusted time has shifted backwards into the previous day. So this 2203, I don't have the extra hours for this on a Saturday, but what I do have is I run up until 4 a.m. on the Saturday morning. So when I hit update, it's now giving me the total number of working minutes, which excludes all the non-working time, which is exact 18 hours for my working time. Now it's exactly 18 hours because I've got all of Thursday and all of Friday's working time, and I've got 9 hours on each of those shifts. So from 9 till 4 gives me the 9 hours on each shift. Sorry, 7 till 4. Okay, so that's how the code works. It's not perfect, it's quite inelegant, but it does the job. I hope you found that useful. If you did, don't forget to click like and subscribe down below, and once more, thank you for listening.